I believe we're in a world of trouble.
And I just wanted to throw this in because you said and I think Bill Binney and the other people that you were speaking to, we have this window of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now, in this window, right before those individuals are sworn into the House and the new senators and the representatives, they've been gathering information on election fraud. Mm-hmm. Okay, because we know a lot of these individuals got into their positions because of fraud. We saw it happen in Florida. We were seeing it in Georgia. We were seeing it in Texas, in California, and many other places. And I'm just putting it out there. What happens if Trump, within this window, decides to declass and then show the DHS report of election fraud that these individuals got their positions in the House because of fake, phony, false voter information, and these people were not real, they're forged signatures and whatnot? Will these people then be able to take their seats in January? Most likely not. And if he declasses at the same time, doesn't this push the agenda where the deep state will have a very difficult time pushing back, because it could be complete chaos for them? Because putting the D-class out there, showing an election fraud report from DHS, it would put everything up in the air, especially for the House. And maybe even more people would be moving over in the Senate. Maybe instead of the count being 53 to 47, maybe the account would be 60 to, whatever the other number would be, because of all these individuals that were using election fraud to get into their positions. In this window of opportunity, don't you think that would be like the mother of all bombs to hit all at once?
I do think it would be the mother of all bombs. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. I wish, Dave, I wish I could tell you that the folks I've known for many years, when I run this by them and say, hey, look, there was blatant voter fraud and blatant voter suppression, Fox News, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But the election, I believe, results were altered, and every day went on after the election. I mean, my goodness, the globalists gained more seats in the House after the election than they actually probably won election night, right? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, look at Orange County, California. What do they have? 300,000 more votes for members of the House than they did in the governor's race in those same districts. What? How does that work?
That must have been Common Core math.
Yeah, right. But so I actually put this scenario in front of a number of folks I trust that have been freedom fighters for decades within government. And I said, look, we've got this DHS investigation going on. There's all these documented evidence of voter fraud, voter irregularity, vote tampering, and in all the places you mentioned. And I said, maybe this could hit. And what do you think about this hitting in December? And then they won't be able to seat these things. And here's what I was told, Dave. Two separate sources that don't know each other. They said, well, that would be great, but we don't think that's going to happen. What we believe is that the DHS report, the information that's been gathered on voter fraud, is going to actually be used to make the 2020 election more fair and honest. And there are people that they have recently 9 people indicted in Los Angeles for the vote fraud about Skid Row and all that kind of stuff. But there's going to be more indictments. There's going to be more people held accountable about voter fraud and vote tampering. And in addition, those people and many other people that have been caught are going to be squeezed to get to people higher up. And as they get to people higher up, those people will be given a choice. We're either going to prosecute you or you're going to stop this. And we're going to make sure that the 2020 election is it's not that any election can be completely fair and honest, but to try to minimize the effect in 2020. That I was actually kind of disheartened in that response from those two individuals, because these two individuals, the information they've always passed on to me over all the years has always been accurate. So my hope of seeing people not seated, that this be exposed before they're seated or while they're being seated, and then there being this big switch. I've been told that the chance of that happening is slim to none.
I wanted to go back to the New York Post article with Trump's quotes, where he said something about people not being able to handle this type of information because it's bad information. Do you think he's putting it out there right now to get everyone ready for what is coming because it's so bad that he wants people to say, hey, what did he just say? Why did he say that? What's so bad? Do you think he's putting this out there, dropping these little breadcrumbs to get everyone prepared for what is coming?
Yeah, he's a master at putting breadcrumbs out. He'll never put the whole loaf of bread out, right? And the reason is because if he puts the whole loaf of bread out, 90% of people, none of our, all of our listeners excluded on this, but 90% of the people out there could not even wrap their heads around it, right? So he has to put kernels of information out, knowing full well that he's going to be demagogued and made fun of. And, we see this time and time again. He says something, the bought off lamestream media propagandists hammer him, the globalist puppets hammer him, and he's only then shown to be correct. A good example of that is when he said he was being illegally surveilled. He was right, but he was hammered for weeks. Oh my gosh, he's mentally unstable. This guy's a conspiracy theorist. This guy is delusional. He's paranoid. No, he was right. But 3 months later, when he was proven correct, there were no retractions. So yeah, I do agree with you. I think he's putting information out to make people go, wait a minute, whoa. What could be so bad that I'm not supposed to see it, right? What? Huh? What's he talking about? Wait a minute, I got to think about that now. Wait, what could he be? And so I think as many of the things Trump does, there's a multi-prong approach to what he does. Okay, so one prong is he's saying, again, it's not like him. It's not like him to overtly tell people what he's about to do, right? Because he's even mentioned that before. If you have an effective military, you don't tell them, hey, we're going to go to this sector. That's where we're going to bomb next. Okay. Just so you know. Usually if he does he's going to, if he's going to put something out there, it's a bit of misdirection. Right. So he's hesitant to release the documents because his lawyer tells him, well, save it. So maybe his lawyer did. I'm sure his lawyer did say that, but I'm not sure that's ultimately going to be what he does. I think he put that out there to put the breadcrumbs out there to make people think, hey, wait a minute, what could be so bad that he didn't want me to? What's he talking about? Where's he going with this? That's one. And I'm sure he'll follow this up with some other statements in the days and weeks to come. But I also think there's another side to this. And I think he might be getting his opponents, enemies, giving them a little bit of a warning, but also making them feel a little bit complacent, right? Okay. So maybe we won't pull on that string as it relates to him, because if we don't pull on that string, then he won't dump this. And so I think there's a component of that. And I also think there's a component, a psyops. Going back to Saul Alinsky, he used to say, sometimes the lead up, you want to make it so that the lead up to the event is actually harder on your opponent than the event itself. In other words, get in their heads 24/7 and make their heads explode because they're worried about what's coming. So he makes this statement, and very soon after he makes this statement, next thing we know, John Brennan goes on this rampage on Twitter. And in medicine, we have this concept of projection, that if you're guilty of something, you project onto others, what you're actually guilty of. And right. Brennan goes on this tweet storm. He goes, directed at Trump, your feelings of inferiority, insecurity, vulnerability, and culpability are loud and clear. You remind me of how many corrupt authoritarian leaders abroad behaved before they were deposed. Bob Mueller's name will be revered in the annals of U.S. history. Your name will be scorned. to me, Dave, when I read that, I go, wow, this is like projection on steroids.
Yeah.
And that all started after Trump made this comment about there's some things maybe the public shouldn't see because they're so bad. And let's go back to my conversation with Bill Binney and Kurt Wybe, who said, hey, look, one of the people that's going to come out looking really bad on this declassification is John Brennan. So I think there was a multi-pronged approach. I think in a way, Trump was being honest. His attorney did tell him, hold it, save it. But he also wanted to get in the heads of his enemies and opponents, and he also wanted to leave some breadcrumbs for the public. So they start questioning, what could be so bad? What? What's so bad that I shouldn't be able to see that? No, I don't like that idea. I want to see it now. So I think this is that, going back to that quote and that comment, I think this is where he was headed.
Dave, do you think the deep state, do you think they're going to be pushing another major false flag? I mean, we saw what happened in Ukraine, where ships, they sailed into the Russian waters and, they stopped them. And Poroshenko, he went out and he said, okay, now it's martial law. And do you think this is all part of their plan to try to still maybe start a war or something to deflect from everything that's going on?
Yes, I do. And it goes back to one of your first comments about the migrant caravan. I believe that's also a potential setup for some significant issues, terrorist attacks coming out of that. It could be that the women and children that are on the outer edge of this wall, they're the ones they should potentially worry about inflicting bodily harm on them is not the United States military, but actually people within the inner core that are MS-13, Al-Qaeda, and have ties into terrorist groups from the Middle East. So I do think that the globalist syndicate, the deep state, I think will, and it might not just be one, Dave. There might be a series of false flag events meant to disrupt society, disrupt, if you will, institute their business model of chaos. Because that's always worked in the past. It's always worked in the past, Dave.
Right.
I mean, we have to give our enemies credit. The deep state has been very successful for many, many decades of not only controlling the narrative, but controlling societies around the world. And out of that, they've gotten more power and they've gotten more finances. Now, here's the good news. The deep state is very good at playing offense. They don't know how to play defense. And this is why Donald Trump bothers the living daylights out of them. Because Trump forces them to play defense. And they don't know how to play defense. And because of that, they make mistakes. And they not only make mistakes, but they become desperate. And they become hysterical. And you see them acting out, such as we saw with John Brennan here. We recently had Hillary going into an enormous tweet storm, another case study in projection. So he is, they despise him because he puts them in a very uncomfortable position, and that is of playing defense. And they don't know how to do that. And I believe when all this settles out, there's going to be rough patches for everybody around the world here. But I believe when it all settles out, I believe the freedom movement will be more empowered. And I believe the deep state globalist syndicate will be not decimated. I would hope it would be decimated, but I don't think it's going to get there. I believe it will be mortally wounded.
Dave, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
Sure. As you mentioned, Dave, we have the Operation Freedom YouTube channel. I'm not as prolific as you are as putting YouTubes out. You are the master, but I do try to get 1 or 2 out a week. In addition to that, my radio show airs live. It's a live radio show every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. We're based at Wham Talk 1600 Studios. We're based in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And folks can stream the show live if they go to my website, davejanda.com, hit the Listen Live button in the upper right-hand corner. We're there 2 to 5 Eastern on Sundays. And then we also upload a significant amount of public information on davejanda.com on a very regular basis. And then I have a subscription service, 30 cents a day, $9 a month. Folks can sign up for a month. If they don't like it, they can drop it. But on that subscription service, folks give 24/7 access to our podcasts, to the archives of our show all the way back to October of 2010. I do 2 other shows, the Insider Insight Show, which is a video interview show of such guests that we have coming up here of Bill Binney and Kirk Wybe. I just had an interview actually with General Paul Vallely. It will also be uploaded here. And then I also have a show called the WTF Show, which is a show about geopolitical analysis based on my contacts that I've had of people that I've known for many cases, many years, in some cases several decades, to provide information that the fake propaganda media does not speak about. And then we have our Department of Advanced Research show that focuses on technology. And then we have our healthcare symposium briefings about how folks can cut their healthcare expenditures and the like. So we have a public side, a private side, davejanda.com. We have the YouTube channel, Operation Freedom. We have the radio show, Operation Freedom, that folks can stream at davejanda.com every Sunday from 2 to 5. And Dave, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I'd like to particularly thank you as well, David, for everything that you do, because you truly enhance every person's freedom and liberty and future by giving them information that's honest, independent, and not bought and paid for by the globalist syndicate.
Dave, thank you very much for coming on the X22 Report Spotlight. I really appreciate it, and it's an honor to have you on here, and I hope you come back again.